And we're up. All right. So, this is Candace DeYoung, the owner of 8215 Highland Avenue, and I have a couple questions for her about the house and her experiences in it. Question number one, when you first moved into the house, did you know about the house, or about like the past about the house, and what did the sellers tell you about it?
Well, when I first bought the house, it was being sold by the owner's niece. I guess she was the owner because I knew someone had, I knew it was an older couple, but they didn't live there anymore, but I didn't know anything else other than that. I never spoke to the niece at all. It was all handled by a realtor.
Okay. And then, I guess, second question, before you moved into the house, did you consider yourself a superstitious woman? Meaning, like, were you a big believer in spirits and things of that nature?
Wouldn't say superstitious. I mean, yeah, I do believe in that there's something else out there, but I never really experienced anything at all personally. So yeah, I mean, I believe that you know, I believe that there's maybe a different dimension, or heaven. I grew up on that like most people did, and your spirit goes somewhere. So yeah, I did believe in that, but I never had any experiences personally.
Okay. And then, how long have you lived in the house?
We've lived here for 14 years, a little bit over 14 years now.
14 years, okay. And can you share any experiences that you've had in the house that you've been here, like any strange happenings or anything like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. First moved in, didn't really, I didn't really notice anything when we first moved in. So I was divorced when I moved here. I had two small boys, 4 and 6, and they would go when they go by their dads on the weekend. I would always leave the front door open so they could either come in that night, or if they were coming in being dropped off for school in the morning, they could just come in the door. And there were quite a few times where I know I left the door open, and the doorbell be ringing, and I'd have to run downstairs and let them in. And I just thought, well, maybe I forgot it. That's how it started. And then I know for sure that I left those doors unlocked because I hated being woken up in the morning. And so that's how it started with that. And then my youngest son and I were talking one day about the first time that I brought them into the house. And so I said, well, what do you remember? He says, oh, I remember the realtor. I says, you do? What do you remember? Oh, I remember the old man. And I just kind of looked at him and said, I didn't say anything, but I thought we had a woman realtor, and she wasn't old. I just thought, okay, that did not happen. And I said, so, what do you remember? What were you thinking? He said, well, I remember the realtor was, walking right next to you, Mom. And I said, really? And he says, yeah, I remember that. And I said, well, anything else happened? He says, yeah, I remember there was a bench in the family room, and he was sitting there, and I said, did he ever say anything to you? And he said, yeah. He said, I hope you enjoy living here. And I started freaking out because no way did that happen. We had a female realtor, and it was just me and my two sons walking through the house the very first time. So that happened. And then there've been other things like lights turning on. I actually this just happened recently, about a month or so ago. I went to the bathroom. It was early in the morning, right before dawn. And I went to the bathroom, and there were no lights on. And then I came back out of the bathroom, and I have a fireplace in my bedroom, and on the mantle is just this little itty bitty, almost like a night light kind of a light. But you have to turn it on in order for it to work. And it was on. And I just thought that was just strange. And not only that, but there's been things in between, like one of my sons was up in the morning. I think he was watching, I don't know, sports or something on TV. And then all of a sudden, he goes up to take a shower, comes back down, and he goes, Mom, what did you do to that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, everything's unplugged out of the back of the TV. Nothing was attached. And he goes, did you do that? I'm like, really? I never even touched that stuff because I don't even know how to fix it if I did. And and um and I says, "You didn't do that?" He says, "No." But every single thing was unplugged out of the TV. And like I said, there's been lights on and off. So that's been pretty much over the 14 years things that have happened.
Okay, and at any point, did you feel threatened by this presence at all? Like, did you feel like you were in danger, your kids were in danger, anyone in the house?
No, not at all. When the door started being locked, I felt that it was the gentleman that used to live here was Gus. I felt it was him trying to lock the door, saying, "Okay, you need to, lock your doors at night." And and I remember getting really frustrated after this happened for like just on and off for years. Finally, I just said, "Gus, stop locking the door." I said, "You can lock it after the boys come home." And from that point forward, the door was never locked again since I said it. So I never felt threatened at all. It was, I think it was more of a protection kind of a thing. And maybe Gus felt that my youngest son was watching too much TV or something. I don't know. Who knows? But I never felt threatened at all.
And one other question. And you truly believe that Gus is the presence behind these strange occurrences and everything like that, right?
Definitely. One of the neighbors. Now, when I first bought the house, I knew nothing about what happened here.
But yeah, when did you find out that he committed suicide in the house?
I would say it was about 2 to 3 years after we moved here.
Wow. Okay.
And maybe it was 2 years after we moved here. And I was talking to one of the neighbors, and because no one else mentioned that before to me. And the neighbor says, "Yeah." And that's how I found out his name. His name was Gus. Yeah, it was strange. I said about what happened here with Gus. And I said, "Well, what happened?" And he said, Gus's wife, I forget her name, Stella, had been sick. And I guess she was in some sort of I don't think she was in the hospital. I think she was more in a nursing home. And I guess she passed away. And Gus, what the neighbor told me is Gus came home, changed his clothes, went to go get his hair cut and a shave, came back home and started giving away like snow blowers and lawnmowers and stuff that he had in the house that he wanted to, I guess, give to people. And then my understanding is he went into the garage and he turned on his car and he committed suicide. He's, died of asphyxiation. And I was just kind of glad it didn't happen in my bedroom because that was my first thought. That would have freaked me out a little bit more. And I just think he loved this place so much, that he felt he needed to, continue to protect it. And then when I asked George, the neighbor, what he looked like, he described an old man with gray hair, which my youngest son described, that followed us around the house when we first looked at it with the kids, when I first looked at it with the boys. So I'm pretty sure it's Gus.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Thank you. I appreciate your time, and
Sure.
Thank you.